Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discourse, episode 14. We're in our early teens now. I can't believe we've been doing this for, at the very least, 14 weeks, and it's been so much fun. And we're spending the month of January to reminisce about the year 2021. Recently just talked about our favorite animated shows, and that was such a great discussion. And now we're talking about our favorite movies of 2021. I have to admit at the top, I have not seen as nearly as many movies as I have in past years. 2020 included. It's just been an odd 2 years, really. But that's not to say I didn't see some great films this year. Just not too many. And I do have a top 10 list. As of right now, I imagine it as I see several more films over the next couple of weeks that it will definitely change. But as of right now, this is what my top 10 list is. And once I finish talking about my top 10, we'll go into more detail about my favorite movie, and then we'll do that for each and every single person here. We got a big group here, by the way. Thank you, Deadpool, Emily, Austin, Chris Ayers, Jacob, Kazfe, M. Xavier, Luke DeBoss joins for the first time. Pleasure to have you here, Luke DeBoss. Hope you're doing very well. And, of course, Vanny. Good to have you here. But I'll go ahead and stop. I'll start with number 10, and I'll work my way up to number 1. At number 10, I'm a cheetah. I have the Fear Street trilogy. They're a wonderful homage to 90s and 80s and 70s horror, and I really like them. So I'm going to put all 3 in there, if you will. I know they're separate films, but I don't care. The Fear Street trilogy. Number 9, Godzilla versus Kong. It gave me what I wanted. It took the best of the Kong movies and the best of the Godzilla movies for what they were, and combined them, and it was the big monster brawl that I wanted. Yes, the characters are underwritten, but it was still a really fun movie, and I just love the palette. I love the aesthetic of the film, the neon. Number 8, Don't Look Up. I know this is a controversial movie. I know it's getting really mixed reviews, but I thought it was a nice critique of of the times that we're going through right now. In the place of a pandemic, we have a giant meteor that's ready to kill us. Number 7, The Green Knight, a movie that has some pacing issues, but is a wonderful adaptation of the Arthurian legend and one of my favorite endings of the year. Number 6, Disney's Encanto. Saw this recently. Thought it was a wonderful musical, beautifully animated, very well voice acted, and I loved all of the songs. And then moving on to my top 5, I have The Suicide Squad. James Gunn totally revitalized the Suicide Squad, took the few things that worked about that original movie, which are few and far between, and he just brought it new life. It was well written. It was funny. I cared about the character. You made me care about someone called Polka Dot Man, and that was truly special. But so Suicide Squad is number 5. At number 4, another comic book movie, Spider-Man No Way Home. We've talked about this before in past discourses. Tom Holland, Zendaya, Jacob Bolaton, they all give great performances, bringing back those original villains. I loved how they did it. Defoe knocks it out of the park. What a wonderful movie. And then my top 3, number 3, with Pig, Nicolas Cage's Pig. Everyone says Nicolas Cage, he's a horrible actor. He's over exaggerated. No, this movie shows that he still is an incredibly talented man. A movie that's not like John Wick, despite the trailers. What it really is about is how we deal with trauma throughout our lives, whether we choose to address it head on or retreat and spend time with ourselves. And so I love Pig. Number 2, A Quiet Place Part 2. You guys know I'm a huge creature feature fan. And I thought I still struggle to think, like, do I like this movie even more than the original? It just expanded the world, which I loved. And John Krasinski clearly has a talent for horror. So I can't wait to see chapter 3, but part 2 I thought was great. And then my favorite movie of the year, which a lot of you guys already know, is The Mitchells versus the Machines, which is directed by Mike Rianda, who before Mitchell vs. the Machines, or Connected as it was originally called, he worked on Gravity Falls. And I now understand, it's like, oh, okay, I think that's one of the big reasons why I love Mitchell vs. the Machines, because a lot of that Gravity Falls humor is in this. But it has an all-star cast of people like Abby Jacobson and Danny McBride and Maya Rudolph and Olivia Colman, where the overarching plot of the movie it's following this family is going on a road trip and just happens to be during the robot apocalypse. What it really is about, it's a family trying to connect with each other again before they send their daughter off to college. and the struggle with that and the differences that there are between family members. And it's the movie that, that made me laugh and made me cry the most this year. You guys knew you guys remember we did the watch party for it a few months ago, how emotional I was. I might have been drunk, but I was very emotional while watching that movie. But it's a beautiful story. It's one that I've probably seen, of all the movies I've seen this year, it's the one I've seen the most, I want to say. I've seen at least 3.5 or 4 times now. But it's beautiful. And again, it's that type of animation we're seeing more and more, where it's like that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animation. This again is Sony, which is so weird that their animated output can be something like Mitchell's vs. the Machines or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or something like the Emoji Movie. It's like, Jesus Christ, the whiplash, the 180 going back and forth. But I hope they continue in this trajectory right now, offering these kind of animated films. And it's one of those movies where it's like, hey, make sure that you're produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, because I think they'll do you right. The projects that they seem to touch always seem to work out very well. But yeah, to me, it is my favorite movie. I think it's the best movie of the year. But I want to open up to you guys before we move on to everyone else's top 10 list or just top movie list of 2021. Anyone have any thoughts on the Mitchells versus the Machines?
Yeah, I loved it. Honestly, that's my number one pick as well. Nice. And it really does have walk that really nice line of really, really silly. And like, there's some jokes that are just like, that just kind of hits you right in the funny bone for it. Mm-hmm. It's telling a relatable story with it too. It's got some strange sci-fi elements for it too. It talks a little bit about our reliance on technology. And it's at its absolute core, it just has a really nice family dynamic too. Yeah. And like it's a good reminder of like versus stuff like the Emoji Movie, where they kind of talk down to you. They take what is the easiest joke we can possibly do. Mm-hmm. And Mitchell is the exact opposite of that, where they do respect the audience's intelligence, and they just really just told a very at times very mature, very dark story, but just in a very lighthearted way too. And it addresses some heavier issues too, which I really respected.
Agreed.
Hit me right in the feels too. Yeah, I loved it.
On your point, I just wanted to mention like how, like in the Emoji Movie, they go after the low hanging fruit, or like those. Mm-hmm. Of course, you would make that kind of joke. Mitchells vs. the Machines, like they're referencing things that are in our culture, like the whole segment with the Furbies, which was this huge craze in the 90s. The thing is, they made it like a part of the story, and they actually had some really clever gags for it that it worked. And so it's like, hey, if you want to have stuff that addresses our culture, do it this way. They actually put some effort into it, whether it be when it came to the writing or just the animation. Like that entire sequence I thought was brilliant. So yeah, totally agree with you, Danny. Anyone else have any opinions on Mitchells versus the Machines?
I do. You go, Chris Ayers.
Oh no, you go ahead, Austin.
So anyway, so I was a big fan of Michael Rianda. This is one year I watched the entirety of the first season of Gravity Falls commentary for every episode, and you don't realize how big of a part of that show he was, because he only did the first season and then left to work on this movie.
Right.
But man, is this movie? I remember this is like the last trailer we saw just before the pandemic happened. Like this trailer came out and then the pandemic happened, and I was really looking forward to it, and I'm like, it blew my socks. It was better than I think anyone could have expected it to be. And I think it is a really just simple story of a family kind of just going on a road trip while like all this crazy stuff happens. But I think at the core of it is it's really relatable, I think, to a lot of people here, because it's about being creative and having and sort of dealing with parents and the kind of generational gap between I'm really into this, but my parents are really into this, and trying to kind of find common ground and find kind of, connections between, even though you guys love each other, there is, I think, a lot of relatability to Katie and what she goes through and the story that's being told in the movie. And while also being funny, and, it makes fun of a reliance of technology, but still, it's, at the end of the day, technology kind of saves the day.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It shows the best and worst of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool. It's a nice balance, and you're right. Totally agree with you. Where it's examining these generations and how they struggle to relate to each other, but the movie has those moments where they do find that common ground. It's beautiful because of the struggle throughout the entire movie
and the sacrifices. I think that like certain generations make for other ones, and sometimes we don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Anyone else have any opinions on Mitchells vs. the Machines?
As far as the animated stuff I've seen this year, which admittedly it's only been this and Luca, I think. I still need to see Encanto and maybe some other stuff. This is by far like my favorite animated movie of the year. It's high on my top 10 list. I hadn't watched Gravity Falls beforehand, so I didn't really know what to expect going in, but afterwards it made me really curious to check that show out, and I cannot wait to see what these guys do next. These directors.
Same. No, Mike Rianda did such a great job, and the fact this is his for not obviously including Gravity Falls, his first cinematic theatrical release film. It's like, wow, what a way to start! Incredible. So can't wait to see what he's going to be doing in the future. Anyone else have any opinions on Mitchell vs. the Machines?
Danny McBride. Holy crap!
Oh, he's so good in it.
Yeah,
he's fantastic as the dad.
Yeah, and somebody who's like, I think, more known for like darker humor, more adult style humor for it, and putting him into a family comedy like this, especially an animated one, like it shocked me how good he was in it and how much emotion he's able to convey, especially what feels like it was his first time doing something like this, and he just nailed it.
He was in Kung Fu Panda too, so.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah,
I liked him in Kung Fu Panda too.
I liked him. Good. He was like a henchman, so he was. Like
he was. Character. It was the role. It's like, oh, of course, Dan McBride would play that role. Yeah, no, you're right. Does anyone else have any thoughts? I think Deadpool, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think one of the best parts about Mitchell vs. the Machines is that the characters are all believable.
Yeah.
A lot of animated like movies and shows, they tend to make like the characters a little over the top.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kind of like what Simpsons has kind of slowly crept into doing.
Sure.
Where those people shouldn't exist in real life. But with Mitchell vs. the Machine, like all those characters are believable. Like the dad is completely believable. The mom, the daughter, the son, like those are all people that we either know or in some cases for Chris are. So like it's just like I work like phone support IT, and yeah, there are a lot of people like the dad who do not understand technology in any way, shape, or form, and are most likely scared by it. So like the movie is 100% believable and relatable, which just kind of adds to it. They don't have to resort to doing, like I said, over the top jokes that just kind of get annoying.
Yeah, even though it indulges in like internet culture, like I was never annoyed by any of their gags, and even when they do callbacks, like later on, like at the very end of the movie, it's like, wow, it still worked well, and it wasn't grating at all, so which was great. But you're totally right. Like all these characters are believable, despite it being an over the top animated film. They are like I love how the character of Aaron, who is also voiced by Mike Randa, the director. Like he's obsessed with dinosaurs, and we always knew. Like I was that kid who was obsessed with dinosaurs at one point. Would go to the library and get all the dinosaur books and just read them. Or we've known someone like that. Or you have or in Katie, where she's obsessed with film and filmmaking, and no one really understands her ideas. But then as she's going to college, she's like, oh, these people get me, and yeah, that really spoke to me. And so yeah, it's a beautiful movie. Does anyone else have any other last minute thoughts for Mitchell's vs. the Machines?
I'm sorry I'm late, but I thought it was astounding.
No, good to have you here, Ace Rock. No, agreed. 100%. I was shocked at how good this movie was. I remember like it was like, oh, this looks fun. Okay, it's from the same people that did Into the Spider-Verse. All right, we'll see how this is. But no, I was already like the trailer when I saw the movie. I did not think that would be when it was called Connected originally would be my favorite movie of 2021. But it is, and it's a movie I really encourage people to check out, even if maybe the trailer wasn't to your liking. But moving on from me and my top 10 list, let's go ahead and go to Vanny Spheres. What is your top 10 list and your favorite movie of 2021?
All right. So for me, number 10 is Encanto. Again, having just watched it with you, I really genuinely did respect how much effort and care went into this film. Great songs, etc. Really good. Number 9, I was really surprised with this one, Vacation Friends. It was on Hulu, starring John Cena. Like I've seen John Cena in other comedies before, and he genuinely tends to stick out as just being a highlight. And very much so, same thing with this one. He was just super funny, super weird, and I want to see him in more comedies as well. Number 8 is America, the Motion Picture from Netflix. Just overall a fairly solid over the top animated comedy, but at the very end with just a really dark and just sort of sobering ending. And I really respect just how far they went there with just kind of a reminder of just, yeah, we have a lot of work to do in this country. So I respected it. Next one is the Muppet Haunted Mansion. I am very much somebody who, like, I live 20 minutes from Disneyland. The Haunted Mansion is my favorite ride. I adore the Muppets, and it was a Gonzo-centric story with great music and celebrities. Super short. It's like 45 minutes. It's really more of, I wouldn't even necessarily call it a film, but I just loved it so much that I felt it was worth discussing quickly.
Nice.
Number 6 is Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. Just the way they sort of retconned Iron Man 3. Simu Liu was absolutely fantastic in it, and we got a really solid villain this time. Like, I think we got somebody at that Loki level of just somebody who's super memorable. And yeah, just like, I know people didn't necessarily like the third act. I personally found it absolutely fine. But yeah, it's opening up like the next phase of the MCU, which I was excited about. Next one, got another John Cena film, Suicide Squad at number, what's that? My number 5? Yeah. Super fun. And this is what the original Suicide Squad film should have been, where you just embrace the weird. You have little redemptive moments, but overall having fairly dark characters doing dark things. And Margot Robbie, again, just really did knock it out of the park. I think even from a physicality standpoint, her sense of humor. I still think Kaylee Cuoco is still the highlight Harley Quinn right now in current DC films and content. But Margot Robbie, I think, did a great job. Number 4, Dune. Again, just visually, music, the cast, the acting, everything, just really did a great job. I just wish there was more of it. And for an already very long film, it flew by to me very quickly and very much enjoyed it. Number 3 is Spider-Man No Way Home. I had the tears. I had even like with having like a small piece of the film spoiled for me. It was still super exciting to see it, to see these major scenes happen, and just to see Tom Holland's evolution as an actor from the first Spider cameo from Civil War through now, just seeing how he's grown into this character. And yeah, and just there's so many scenes that I want to talk about that it's still, I think, not fair just to avoid spoilers and for the sake of time. But there's a lot of like, God, that hits you right in the feel moments, which I appreciated. I'll skip to my number 2 to talk about that one more in depth, because my number 1 we talked about was Mitchell versus the Machines. But very close number 2 is Green Knight. Like, again, it's just a film with a absolutely wonderful character arc. Again, like, strong cast. It has a very redemptive ending, but also at the same time a very dark one too. And it forces the audience to think about this character and to still have somebody who is being overall portrayed as a hero, but at the same time has a lot of heavy flaws. And for a film that also doesn't have that many action scenes for it too, I was at the edge of my seat just seeing what's going to happen next to this guy, what's going to happen next and next and next. Yeah, like, I think we need more films like this, and I really respect the studio. What's this, A24?
A24, yep.
Yeah. They have no problem saying, like, fuck your feelings. You're going to feel bad at the end of this film.
You know, it's interesting that you say you're going to feel bad at the end of this movie, because I think you can interpret the ending in different ways.
You can.
Which I love, because that's why it's probably my favorite ending this year, and that's why it's also in my top 10 list. Because I know a number of people that really dislike this movie, and I can see it where it's like it's because of the pacing, and like I get that. Especially there's one sequence in this film which I do think is a little slow. However, I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
To look at. This is some of the best cinematography in it. Dev Patel gives a hell. I think this might be the best he's ever been, probably since Slumdog Millionaire. It's a very different role for him too, which you won't often see him in, and so that was just really refreshing. But no, I loved his entire arc and what he goes through and how he realizes, like, oh yeah, I have been a piece of shit, which is totally what the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. That's what the Arthurian legend is about. This incredibly flawed individual, and then he is confronted with his flaws. And I love I forget the filmmaker's the name. He also did, I think, Pete's Dragon a number of years ago before he did
David Lowery.
Oh. David Lowery. Thank you, Chris Harris. I loved his choice to change the ending, because I know that might piss off a few, Arthurian lore masters, but I really like that. It's one of those really special films, and shows that, hey, medieval movies or medieval style films don't only need to be like Game of Thrones; they could also be like this. And so I'm right there with you. Does anyone else have any opinions on The Green Knight? I guess we're the only ones that saw it.
Yeah, we liked it. Yeah, it was. It was excellent. It's absolutely worth a watch.
I was just doing something. I saw it too. Yeah, I agree with you guys on everything you said. It looks amazing. Dev Patel's performance is incredible. I agree. This is probably the best thing I've ever seen him do. His arc and the way it progresses is fantastic. And I didn't have any problem with the pacing at all. I thought I was going to because of how much you kept bringing it up, but I never felt it. It just flew by for me. And it's a great Christmas movie.
I guess so, because it does take place initially on Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, I'm adding this to the marathon now. I'm going to do it.
There you go. There you go. Perfect. I love it. I love it. Van, do you have any other thoughts on Green Knight or
just I think this is where like just like Mitchell versus the Machine, this is a film that respects the audience being intelligent and can come to their own assumptions. And even to your point, like the ending can be interpreted like with a positive ending for like a redemptive arc, but still with a solemn ending, or just maybe this look of like, like, yeah, it's still a dark ending, but it's like one thing's like it's the opposite, like the justification of like all like stuff like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or Pinocchio or things like that, where like they're like these are all like tragic heroes, and Disney then takes like, no, we'll give everyone happy endings. Green Knight is like, nah, bro, nah. Again, it can still definitely be interpreted as a I wouldn't say a happy ending, but more of a positive ending. But it's still dark. It's still a dark film, and it just expects you to pay attention and not hold back. And I loved it. I thought, again, a small cast, but a great cast too.
Agreed. I think the actors are used very well. They all give a terrific performance. Some people play different characters too.
Yep.
Which I think is really cool. But no, thank you, Vanny, for going over your list and your second favorite movie of 2021. Right. But Luke the Boss, please go into detail. What was your top 10 of 2021 and your favorite movie of 2021?
Well, I don't really have a top 10.
That's fine.
But I can just I guess a quick list of movies I enjoyed. So I liked, just like you, I include the Fear Street as like 3 movies, like the whole thing, because you have to watch all of them, So yeah, I like the Fear Street trilogy. Don't Look Up was a good movie. Mitchell's versus the Machines was way better than I thought it was going to be. Like I looked at it and I was like, oh, that looks like it might be all right, but now when I saw it, yeah, that was great. But also so there's some movies that maybe won't probably get put on anyone's list, but I don't know if anyone's seen the Demon Slayer movie.
No, but I know that was a huge. It did very well commercially. I think critically it was well praised.
I saw it. It's awesome.
It was a pretty good movie. And also there was this other Sony animation movie that came out on Netflix, but it was like a month after Mitchell versus the Machine. So like I don't think anyone really paid attention to it because everyone was still on. But there's this movie called Wish Dragon, and I actually enjoyed that.
I liked Wish Dragon. I watched it. It has a. Do you remember what's his name? Rocket Jump, Freddie W. Not
I know you're talking about Austin. Rocket Jump. Yeah, Freddie or Juan, right?
Yeah, it's his brother.
Yes. Oh, is that who it is? Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I was like, man, I actually enjoyed it almost as much as Missiles vs. Machines, but I watched it with my little sisters because I went over there to visit, and I was like, oh, let's put on a movie, and I put it on, and they loved it, and I was like, and they actually liked it more than Missiles vs. Machines, and I was like, oh, okay.
There you go.
But it was good, and I'm trying to think of one more movie. Oh, recently I saw Being the Ricardos, and that was surprisingly good. Nicole Kidman, she did a great job.
Nice. No, I know that. I believe Martin of Double Toasted, he spoke highly of that movie, so that's awesome. No, very good. No, thank you. Thank you for going over your list. Appreciate that. Newsy Ducky, what is your top 10 or your top films of 2021, and what is your favorite movie of 2021?
Oh, hi everyone. Sorry I came in late.
No, it's no problem. Happy to have you here.
To be honest, I only have 5 movies that I like.
That's totally fine.
I guess well, the 5th one is the third part of Conjuring. I also like it. I like the whole Conjuring universe. I just like the horror element to the other supernatural. So yeah, the fourth one is The Eternals. I like the MCU movie, so I also like it, and it's kind of like a reunion of the Game of Thrones brother.
It
So
is, yeah.
yeah, and I cannot wait for the sequel for that with Kit Harington's character. So and then the third one, it's gonna be the Spider-Man No Way Home. I like it. Yeah, I like the people and the buildings there. So
a lot of good buildings, a lot of good people in that movie. Agreed.
Yes, yeah. No spoilers. The second one is, I would say,
we waited with bated breath.
I keep forgetting. So it'll be Lamb.
Oh, Lamb. Okay.
Yeah, I like the A24 movies. Especially 2 years ago, the Midsommar, let's say.
Yep.
I also like Lamb. So it was it had a nice unexpected twist at the end, especially with that man lamb hybrid at the end. So yeah, I like it. And I would say the first one that my favorite is The Last Night in Soho. I just like I mean sure the ending is kind of rushed, to be honest, but I mean I like the build up to that point of the ending. And I just like everything from the set and the costumes and the production. It really had the 60s vibes, and the way that they alternate between the present and the past. I actually like it. It's a smooth transition, I would say. Yeah, and that's all I have.
Nice. No, thank you. No, thank you for going over your top five. The one thing, because I imagine Last Night in Soho was on a number of other people's list. I have not yet seen it. I will see it eventually once it's easily available for streaming. But one of the things I did appreciate from the trailer, as you brought up, Newsy Ducky, is just the aesthetic of the movie. Like, I mean, clearly Edgar Wright is just indulging in that 60s retro look, which is very visually pleasing. Yeah, even just recently finishing up the video game Deathloop, which has that same aesthetic, I think is great. So that's one thing I always liked about the trailer that really popped to me. But does anyone else want to speak on Last Night in Soho if you've seen it, or if it is on one of your lists?
It's on my list, but I'm gonna hold back until it's my turn.
Okay, no problem. Did someone else want to say something? All right, no problem. Well, thank you again, Newsy Ducky, for going over your list. Appreciate that. M. Xavier, what is your top 10, your top movies of 2021, and your favorite movie of 2021?
Sure. So I didn't come up with a list, but I do have like one movie in particular that I wanted to bring up, and that was Nightmare Alley. So I'm not too familiar with besides like Pacific Rim and Hellboy, I'm not too familiar with Del Toro's filmography, and so I went into this movie with a little skepticism because obviously I've heard all the good things about it, but I was like, okay, maybe I'll give this movie a shot, and I did. I can say that for the first like 30 minutes to an hour, I think it goes by kind of slow because it's a lot of exposition, but I think that all of that stuff is needed because the payoff is really well done, and you have to go through like that exposition and everything that happens in the beginning to get that payoff. I think that once you get into like the second and third act, that's when the movie like really gets interesting. It feels like almost like a gangster film at points, and Bradley Cooper, his character, because I was gonna say sometimes you root for him, but I don't think you root for him at all. I think he's like kind of slimy and almost like to the point where you're like, yeah, I don't like this guy at all, and I like the way what happens with his character, how it ends. But yeah, really, really well done movie. I was really surprised by it, and now it makes me want to go and watch more of Del Toro's movies, more of his like maybe genre movies, because like Pacific Rim and Hellboy, I feel like those are genre films, but like more of his other movies, and also
more
they
low
with
key
this.
movies.
Yeah, thank you. More of his low key movies, and then I think that this movie, even though it's not being touted as like a creature film in similar to other Del Toro movies, like, but this movie still has like vibes of like creature elements in it, which I thought was still kind of cool. So, yeah, really enjoyed it.
I'm actually glad you brought this up. I was curious if this was on anyone else's list. Because it seems so difficult to see this movie since all the screenings for were being canceled. And because theaters want we're going to put more Spider-Man screens in there, Spider-Man screenings. But I'm glad you brought this up. One, I would encourage you, Xavier, definitely do check out some of his earlier films. I think if you like something like Nightmare Alley, then definitely check out the Devil's Backbone or Pan's Labyrinth. It definitely does delve into supernatural and creature stuff. But
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. But they're also grounded. Also, like one of his original ones, Kronos. I want to check that one out too. I think you'll dig those. It's interesting because I haven't seen that movie. But when I looked at the trailers for it, it looks like it's his prototypical like, oh yeah, it's another creature feature from him or another like supernatural movie. That's why I wasn't interested in it initially. I was like, it's him doing the same shtick. But like hearing from you and other people, it's like, oh, it's not that. It's not that. No, it's a noir. It's a crime movie. And I was like, really? Wow, I just think they mismarketed this film. It's a shame because I see it popping up on a lot of people's best of lists, much like yours. Does anyone else has anyone seen Nightmare Alley? And what are your thoughts on it? I'm just kind of curious. Well, there you go. No one else has seen it. Well, I'm glad you brought it up, Xavier. You're not the only person who I know. Again, Martin Thomas Double Toasted. He brought this up, and it's one of his favorite movies of the year. And so I have to check it out. I don't know if I'll be able to get it, maybe able to see it in theaters, but I will check it out on streaming as soon as I can because it keeps popping up a lot of people's best of lists. So thank you for mentioning it here. Kazfe, what are your top 10 favorite movies of 2021 and your favorite movie of 2021?
Well, as far as movies that came out in 2021, I was only able to put together a list of about 8 that might add up to 10, depending how you look at it. So, I'll start with number 8, which is more of an honorable mention, is South Park Post-COVID, even though it's technically more of a TV special, but you put them both together and it's a movie. And I kind of need to stretch this list a little, but number 7 is 8-Bit Christmas, which is that Neil Patrick Harris movie. I just liked that it was a good combination of it's very similar to A Christmas Story, but it also does take some of the tropes from that movie and change it around and sort of expand upon that genre of coming of age Christmas films. And, I kind of have my own little story about wanting a video game for Christmas, so it resonated with me.
Nice.
And then number 6 is Conjuring Part 3. I mean, a lot of that movie was kind of goofy as far as horror movies go, but I just liked it. There were some parts that scared me, and then there were some parts that kind of made me laugh. So it's just a fun movie. Number 5 is In the Heights. Overall, I just thought it was a well-made musical adaptation. I was just mildly disappointed that, since I haven't seen the stage version, I thought I was going to see something more similar to that. But of course, they always change things to make it shorter. But it's still a great movie. Number 4 is Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yay.
Because it's a fun popcorn movie. Number 3 is the Fear Street trilogy.
There it is.
So, that kind of brings out the list to 10. And it's just one of those things where, it's a great homage, like people said. You got to watch all 3 of them, and it's just a very unique form of storytelling. And then my number 2 is a movie called The Tiny Map of Perfect Things, which I had forgot came out in 2021. And it's just a really interesting film that I think more people should see. It's a reimagining of Groundhog Day, but there's 2 people caught in the time loop instead of one. This young teenage boy, he meets this girl after he's been stuck in this time loop forever, reliving the same day. And he meets her, and she's also living the time loop.
Interesting.
And it's a good quarantine movie. I'm sorry for stopping to talk about this one a little, but it's one that people are less likely to have heard of.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it. Yeah.
I just think you all should really check it out. It really covers the type of existential dread that people are going through these days. It's a good metaphor for it.
Nice.
And then my number one is Encanto, just because, much like what people have been saying about Mitchells versus the Machines, I feel like it kind of captures what it's like to deal with problematic family dynamics. It's very uncomfortable, but in a way that's also very therapeutic. It just, it hit me in all the feels,
Totally. I had issues with Abuela. Abuela's abusive. She was so dismissive of Mirabel, and I was like, I was getting annoyed. I mean, I like you. It's in my top 10, but I was like, they are having so much disrespect directed towards this girl, and it's the grandma's fault. Everything. She's the source of it. But
Also,
no, I'm glad you brought
life,
that up.
grandma, old people never apologize. They're too stubborn.
Oh, that's true.
That.
I found that realistic. I thought it was refreshing that Disney did that for once, because it's like all the other grandmothers in these other Disney films, I feel like, are really wholesome, and it's almost selling lies to children, because your own grandparents expecting them to be understanding, but some of them are just straight up boomers and they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that is a trope in Disney films. Like, so often the grandmother, the figure is, or the grandfather figure, they are the ones that the source of knowledge and wisdom. They're the ones you're supposed to listen to. And I like how they threw that trope on its head. I think that was great. Does someone else have something they want to say?
Oh, I really like the film. It's good. Like, and just as far as like, because I know there's only been there hasn't been like a Disney animation Latino film, but like with Coco, like with Pixar, that was really good. And so whenever Disney Animation was doing this, I was like, I wonder if this will be as good as Coco. And I was like, it actually is pretty good. Like it's on par with that. Like I was really surprised. And yeah, for a movie with no like overarching villain, I mean, I guess you can consider Abuela kind of a villain, but no big bad. I was like, okay, this is good,
Yeah, I appreciate. It did the thing that that Coco didn't need to do. Like, Coco didn't really need like an overarching villain. That's almost felt like tagged onto it. Like, this one's like, no, we're confident enough. It's like, yes. The family dynamic is toxic, and the movie is definitely showcasing that, and they become better people because they're speaking honestly with each other at the end of the film, and they're more welcoming of both Mirabel and of Bruno. By the way, that song, "We Don't Talk About Bruno," no. I've been listening to that the whole time. That is such a wonderful song. All the music throughout it. So good, so good. No, so I'm so glad you brought that up, Casper. Did anyone else have anything you want to mention with Encanto?
I just want to mention.
I haven't seen it, but my son absolutely loves it and makes me play the soundtrack in the car like all the time.
Good. The music, man, listening to that music makes you want to see that movie, just because of like, okay, you hear the songs, like, what are the characters doing then while they're singing these songs? And the animation for each, it's not even, that one is great, and it's creepy and so over the top, but they have some other ones in the movie that are also really good. The one, the sister who has super strength, I really liked her song as well. I thought that was great. But did you want to mention something as well, as Osnick?
Oh, I just wanted to mention, I really like how it's a musical, but it's an animated musical, but they dance like it's a realistic musical. Like, even though there's like some crazy stuff going on, it's mostly a lot of just like actual dancing, which I really like. Also, I learned this recently. The guy who plays Marabella's dad, that's Handy Mandy. That's the voice of Handy Mandy.
Really?
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's who that guy is?
Nice. They're going for the best of the best talent imaginable. I love it.
Wow.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Cass. Like I said, I love Encanto as well. Moving on, Thunder Lee, Jacob, what are your top 10 favorite movies, and what is your favorite movie of 2021?
So, I was thinking about the top 10, and then I only got 9 because I did not want to put Matrix up there.
You can do. Yeah, it's your list. I'm listen. Just because I dislike the movie does not mean that you guys can't have films that that I dislike. You're like, no, you're forbade. No, please. If you don't add it, if you want to add it there, please do so.
No, I was. No, I was just thinking about Matrix. It's like, nah, it's not that enjoyable enough to put it up there, in my opinion. But you are gonna be mad at me for this number 9 one. Space Jam 2.
I'm mad at you. That movie's horrible. No, I love you, Thunder Lee, but that was my worst movie of the year.
So I gotta defend myself over this one. Space, yes, it's not that good of a film, but it's a film that I just sat there and I just like shut off my brain and I just laughed because it's to me, to be honest, like there's some good parts about the movie that I like. Like I did like Don Cheadle a lot in that movie. He was the more charismatic character other than the Looney Tunes characters. So like it's Don Cheadle's performance that really puts it on the number 9 spot. Number 8
I mean,
is
I'm with you. It's not as bad as everyone says. I mean, I don't like it, but it's like on par with the old film. It's like
yeah. I would have put the old film at a number 10 spot, to be honest, but that's just me. But number 8 is Godzilla vs Kong. Story is not good, but I just love the action in that, and when you get to see the fight of Godzilla and Kong, it's one of the most like thrilling and fun moments in the movie. So yeah, that's my number 8. Number 7, I was thinking of putting these movies together, but I decided not to. But Fear Street 1666, that's the part 3 and the conclusion of the Fear Street trilogy. And I enjoyed this movie, but there's not really enough scares for me in that film. And when you're touching the topic of the Puritan times, it's a hit or miss because you're dealing with the topic of witchcraft, which is not bad, but it's like it like I would watch The Witch like a lot more times, and I love The Witch. Number 6 is Fear Street 1994, which is part 1. I like that film a lot. The only thing that brings it down is that I did not like that first part of the movie where it was like a tribute to Scream. It just kind of felt cheap to me. So, but other than that, it was well acted, and there's moments in there's like, what? They killed that person? I'm upset. Number 5 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. This movie is the movie that I wanted to see years ago, and we never got that because a lot of studio interference. Zack Snyder needing to back out because of family issues, and I really love that film. Yes, it's 4 hours long, but it's paced in a way like in chapters that you could just watch it like a show on HBO Max. So you could just watch that first part, and then you could watch the second part, then the third part, and you could stop anywhere in between, and then come back. Number 4 is Fear Street, 1978. That's part 2, tribute to Friday the 13th, and I really do like this film a lot. That's where most of the scares for me worked. And yeah. Number 3. A lot of people will fight me on this, but I will fight back on this. Halloween Kills. It's not a bad movie. It's not. It's a fun movie. People were upset that Laurie Strode took the backseat. Bro, she was hurt. You think she's gonna freaking go ahead and she needs someone and she hurt herself. But other than that, this is a Michael Myers film. And they gave explanation of Michael Myers' intentions up to a certain point. Yes, the people were dumb, but they deserved it. And that's why I like the film. It's a straight up slasher film that I needed in my life. Number 2, The Suicide Squad. When you have John Cena in tighty whities being straight up hilarious, it's fun. It's funny. I love Idris Elba. Ratcatcher 2 was a fun part. what was it? King Shark? That's his name?
Yes.
Basically, the cutest thing, even though he's menacing and scary, and that rated R really helped him out. The movie is really fun, and it sucks that the movie didn't make money like that, but you can't really change the outcome of it. And number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. When you can make me cry 3 times in a movie, you deserve the number 1 spot. It's 20 years of Spider-Man that I love, that I've watched starting when I was like 5 years old going up. Spider-Man No Way Home is basically the pinnacle of Spider-Man, and now that we have this movie, now we could like build up on the multiverse of Marvel films that could happen. And now we have a future of Spider-Man that everybody could like be like, yeah, this is Spider-Man, because everybody was criticizing Tom Holland Spider-Man as saying he's Iron Man Jr. Now he's his own character at this point. So, yeah.
I'm just glad that after 20 years, you finally got a good Spider-Man 3. Took a while. First trilogy, not so good. The second trilogy, they didn't even do one, and this one they delivered. You guys know that I'm a very big Tom Holland Spider-Man fan. I was never one of those people that was critical about him being Iron Man Jr. or whatever people want to refer to him as. I like that they did something different. I like that it just wasn't the same stick with Uncle Ben and great power, great responsibility. I didn't need that. I need something different, and I thought John Watts provided that in each movie. I love every single film in this trilogy, but yeah, the third one it's very special. It's emotional, like you said. I definitely got water-eyed 3 times while watching this movie, and so it's one of those films from last year that I want to see again in the theater when I have a free moment. But does anyone else have anything they want to bring up in regards to Spider-Man No Way Home?
Willem Dafoe is a national treasure.
He's so good.
That he did his own meme stuff in there and sold it so well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just kind of hearing the behind the scenes stuff that he didn't want to just do a cameo. He wanted to have a real presence in the film, do his own action scenes, and just was able to, I think, still have that balance between when he's Norman Osborn versus when he's the Goblin, and just seeing those transitions and those real subtle facial changes in him and his voice dipping.
Mm-hmm.
Just god damn it, like it's like I've always been a big fan of Willem Dafoe, like and seeing him in the last thing I saw him was The Lighthouse last Christmas of all times, where he was just so in character, and just seeing him do that again, like he generally is one of the best character actors of this generation, between like him and like J.K. Simmons,
who's also in the movie as well.
Yep.
No, I'm right there with you, Vanny. As you guys know, I love the Dafoe, and I love his Goblin, and this is just it's more of that, but they make it so personal, especially between Willem Dafoe's Goblin and Tom Holland's Peter, and I love what they did with that. And you're right, Vanny, about those transitions, how he slips between Norman and Goblin. I love that. When you have that one, if it was it Aku asks him, it's like Norman's on sabbatical, honey. It's like all that. So many iconic lines from him in this movie. So yeah, man. No, there are 5 villains in this movie, but he is very much the main villain, which was such a smart choice. Any other thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home?
I was just gonna applaud. I was just gonna applaud Jacob for putting Justice League on his list, because I didn't think I thought it was I didn't think it was bad, or I thought it was better than the original, but I didn't think I was gonna put it on the list. But I'm happy to see it on someone's list.
I'm still reeling.
It was initially on mine too.
I'm still reeling from him putting Space Jam on his list.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm tempted to not even go, because I'm never gonna top that at all. And I agree with
I can't defend it, but
and I agree with you wholeheartedly on Don Cheadle. He deserved an Oscar for that shit. He was
Yeah.
so good.
He was
You don't even make a
really
joke.
animated in
He
that.
looked like John Cheadle.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
really animated in that. To be honest, that's why I really liked his performance. But
My
come
main
on.
problem with that movie is it's a big commercial, but while the first one was a big commercial for basketball shoes, this one's like just a big commercial for HBO Max, and it's like, well, I can't even buy HBO Max where I live, so I'm like, what's the point? What's the point of the movie? Why was Zendaya Bugs Lola Bunny? Why? I could go outside and play a better game of basketball than the end of that movie.
It didn't feel like a game. It felt like a series of gags.
Yeah.
And it's like you had all these Looney Tunes in these movies, but like none of the, like why did Taz was with Rick and Morty? Like the only one that legitimately made sense was Roadrunner and Coyote and Mad Max, and that was it. All the other ones were just like, okay, these jokes were done 20 years ago. Oh, and that Porky Pig raps. That was the worst thing ever.
Get him, Austin.
P-I-G.
That's why I put it in my number 9. I didn't want to put it in my top 5.
Luke the Boss, did you have something that you wanted to say about Spider-Man No Way Home?
Yeah. If it's is it okay to like, is this is it okay with
Spoiler.
spoilers?
I'm still avoiding that. Can you talk around it?
I'll try. Well, okay, so there's this. Okay, so you know how you don't like the post-credit scene because it doesn't.
Oh, you want to talk
make
about that
sense, really?
post-credit scene? Oh, you can spoil the hell out of that post-credit scene. I don't give a shit.
Oh, no. I was just saying. I know you don't like it, and
Yeah.
I agree with you. It doesn't make sense. Well, there's this one other scene in the film that doesn't really make sense to me. And at first I thought, oh, am I just nitpicking? But then they bring up something later to where it's like, okay, so they know about it because they bring up something that it ties to.
Right.
But
I get what you're
I'm
saying.
like, yeah, but since I can't say it, I don't.
No, I probably know what you're referring to too. There are plot. Listen, cause yeah, it's in my top 5, but the movie does have plot holes. It does have that's a problem based up because it's so reliant on other movies of the past, and it created a weird flawed situation for itself. And it's one of those things where it's like you either just go along with it and go like, yep, that's a flaw. We got to move on. But other people like, I get it. I understand people that bothers people.
Yeah, I mean, because I was like, I'm just gonna move past it, and then later on in the film, they brought up something. I was like, wait a minute. So you did see that movie? The writer, whoever did see that movie, but I guess the other writer wasn't paying attention, so they just wrote 2 different. I don't know, but
yeah. No, I mean, no. It has some issues. It has some plot structure issues. So no, you're right in bringing any of them up.
Yeah.
I just want to be careful because I know it's like such a big movie and things, and I don't want to spoil for anyone else who hasn't seen it yet. Because there's going to be that person. I think by the time we get to next week in January, we'll be good. We'll be good after that. Then it's like, okay, you need to have seen this. But does everyone else have any thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home?
I have a confession to make.
Please.
I still haven't seen it.
So there you go. That's why I was careful. I want to be careful.
No,
for everybody.
I think I've waited too long, so it's like fair game for spoilers for me.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be upset at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's a couple of movies that like I'm realizing that like I should have like a top 10 like list of shame of films I haven't gotten around to seeing this year.
Yeah, to see. Yeah. No, it's one of those, man. We're still in the middle of a pandemic right now. Not everyone wants to go out, and we have all these variants. We have Omicron and everything. So yeah, I get people just sort of like, I just want to go to the movies right now. I totally understand. That's why my list is not as robust as it has been in past years. Certainly in the 2010s. Like I just haven't seen as much stuff, and I'm being very particular about what I see. So yeah, don't even feel any shame. That's just how it is. That's how it is right now. But did anyone else want to bring up anything else about Spider-Man No Way Home before we move on to the next person? Okay. Chris Ayers, your top 10 of 2021 and your favorite movie of 2021.
Okay, here we go. So my number 10 is Dune. Very absorbing in its world building and its visuals. It took a book that I thought nobody was ever going to be able to adapt. A great director tried once and failed I guess miserably, depending on how you look at it. But Denis Villeneuve pulled it off. The way he was able to translate it and make it make sense to someone like me who tried reading the book but just couldn't really get into it. The way he pulled it off and like made it make sense to me was exceptional, and I can't wait for part 2. Number 9 is The Last Duel. It's Ridley Scott once again doing medieval movies, and he shows that once again, when it comes to that, especially battles, very few people can top him. It has a really well-handled Rashomon-esque structure with different perspectives and fantastic performances all around. Number 8, The Power of the Dog. It is a very deliberately paced Western with one of Benedict Cumberbatch's best performances as the most evil and asshole-ish character he's ever played, and other strong performances from Kristen Dunst and Cody Smith-McPhee, and beautiful cinematography, and an ending that's up there. Like you guys mentioned, The Green Knight having a great ending. This one's got that too. My number 7 is Nobody. Bob Odenkirk makes for a really good action hero. All the action scenes are really well done. The John Wick comparisons are apt to an extent, while the movie still feels like its own beast. And it's so great to see Christopher Lloyd in something again that's not the Oogie Loves or whatever. Number 6.
Chris Lloyd's in that?
Oh, yeah, him and the RZA are in it, and they're awesome. Number 6 is The French Dispatch. This is very much a traditional Wes Anderson movie in that it's immaculately made, has a fantastic ensemble cast, and is very deadpan in its humor, except for the occasional bit of slapstick. And it's also very, very sweet. I know some people are kind of hot and cold on him. I can kind of be that way at times. But this is one that really worked for me and almost feels like a spiritual sequel to Grand Budapest Hotel at times. My number 5 is The Green Knight, a new Christmas classic, I say. A very interesting story that is absolutely epic in its scope and in its cinematography. And like we mentioned before, Dev Patel, his character arc and his performance is fantastic. Number 4 is Lamb. It's an A24 movie. Not quite what I was expecting, but everything you could possibly hope for and how out there and weird it is. And yeah, it's bizarre. Like the places it goes are so demented. And yeah, that ending is chef's kiss. Number 3, The Suicide Squad. It's James Gunn going full hog on the insanity. It's him salvaging what a lot of us, I'm sure a lot of us thought was an unsalvageable franchise starter with the first Suicide Squad. And yeah, he really pulled it off. I loved every single character. This is the first time I've actually genuinely enjoyed Harley Quinn in something. She's usually a character that kind of gets on my nerves, mostly because of the voice. But she really worked for me here. All the action stuff was cool. And yeah, it's easily my favorite modern DC movie so far. My number 2 is The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's so hilarious. It is so sweet. It is so silly, but silly in a way that's especially well done. And yeah, again, I haven't seen a lot of animated stuff this year, but of the stuff I've seen, it's easily my favorite. And my number 1 movie is, as I'm sure a couple people have probably guessed, Last Night in Soho. This is Edgar Wright going into full-on horror movie mode. He's not satirizing anything. It's him expanding his range and while still keeping several of his key, trademarks that he likes to do, like the tracking shots and the amazing soundtracks and foreshadowing and repeating dialogue and whatnot. But it still feels like him stretching his legs and talking about really mature topics and themes, particularly revolving around misogyny and the dark side of nostalgia and the idea of like, yeah, this golden period from way back when that you think is so great because you're looking at it from a distance. Once you get a closer look at it, you find out, yeah, there's a lot of fucked up shit going on here. And there's a point where you're afraid he's going to screw it up, but then the way he's able to navigate it is so well done. And, again, it's beautifully made. Like, the aesthetic is spectacular. The soundtrack's great. The cast in this is amazing. You've got Terrence Stamp, Matt Smith, Diana Rigg, who this is the last time we're ever going to see her. She passed away recently, and it's a great one for her to go out on. Joy, who is so perfectly cast as the character she's playing. She fits right at home in the 60s, and because she has that timeless quality to her where like you can see her coming from any time period and she would fit. And yeah, Thomas and Mackenzie as the lead, like I cannot say enough positive things about her in general. Like she's had such a great run so far, whether it be Leave No Trace, where people first started to kind of notice her, or Jojo Rabbit as the girl in the attic, where I think like more and more people, I think most of us in here, that's probably where we first spotted her. To even in Old, which, not a great movie, lots and lots of flaws, but I'd say she gives probably the strongest performance in that. And then in this, where it's her like taking charge and like being the lead in a big movie, and she does it so well. Like, and yeah, I think this is the big like sort of breakout movie for her for her because she is just so endearing and so likable, and she's reached that point where whenever she's in something, no matter what it is, I'm there to see it. And yeah, this is the movie that, of all the movies I've seen this year, this is the one that I haven't been able to stop thinking about since I saw it, and I keep flashing back to it in my spare time when I'm not doing something, and yeah, that's why it's number one on my list.
I have not seen Last Night in Soho, as you guys know. So has anyone else seen it? Anyone else want to add to what Chris Ayres has been saying about the movie?
I just have a question. Is it like a reverse Midnight in Paris, where it's like, oh man, I would love to go to the 30s in Paris, but you'd realize how shitty the 30s in Paris probably, like the parts we don't like talk about.
Basically, yeah, like the main character, Ellie, that Thomas Mackenzie plays, like when she starts going there, she's loving it, but then they progressively get darker and more fucked up, and she starts to realize that like, yeah, this is not as amazing as I figured it was going to be. Like looking at it within a modern context.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything they want to say about Last Night in Soho? I guess I know it was on Newsy Ducky's list, and she was talking about how much she liked the film. But yeah, if anything, hearing you talk about it, I want to see it. I have to see it, and that'll happen sometime in the future. Again, when it's on a streaming service, it's something I want to check out. I have not been the biggest fan of Edgar Wright's recent movies, Baby Driver and At World's End, but I do like his older work. So I want to see where I fall on this one in particular.
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, especially around the ending, which I know there's some debate going on. There's I find really weird and almost mean-spirited like discourse around it, but to me,
interesting.
But to me, like it made sense to me within the larger context of the story and the mechanics and how it all works together.
Okay, cool. Newsy Ducky, did you want to say something?
I have a question.
Sure.
Have you seen Last Night in Soho?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably see it once it's available on the streaming service, easily available.
Thanks.
But no problem. Moving on from Chris Ayres' list, we can go to Osnick. Osnick, what are your favorite movies of 2021 and your favorite movie of 2021?
Okay, so since my favorite was talked about, I have one I kind of just want to talk about. It's not my favorite, but I'll kind of skip it and then come back to it when I say my.
Sure.
So my number 10 was Luca. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very cute. I really wanted to beat up that bad guy, that villain in that movie. It was such yeah, whatever that kid. He was like, I don't know. He just felt like such a brat that I just, and like someone who's like, why the heck are you messing with kids? You're older. He's like that, like someone older who would beat up kids at laser tag. I'm like, this is sad. This is sad. Number 9 was I kind of changed this. It's F9 because we family room. I actually did. I thought this was one of the better Fast and Furious, and I liked how Tyrese was like, how are we shot? How are he was actually kind of being meta. I mean, I thought it was better than 8, and
sure.
Even though I like 8 because I kind of do still miss The Rock. I missed a few other elements, but I felt like this was a better one than in the past, and we kind of just waited so long, and all the stupid magnet bullshit was fun, and they did. I mean, they did it. They did the thing what people have been wanting them to do.
Yep, they did.
I'm always joking about how this movie should have been called Fast and Furious Tyrese's Existential Crisis, because that's such like a shockingly major part of this entire movie, and it just made me laugh every time they cut back to him and he was freaking out about like, how are we still alive?
My number 8 which was all we covered. Encanto. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of the best probably the best musical I've seen all year. Good songs, good voice acting, very cute, colorful, very good story. Like it's like like it's just like a really solid just musical. It feels like, and it's just animated. Um, my number 7 is the one I'm gonna talk about. Thing. My number 6 was Shang Chi. I'll probably talk about my other one. I like this movie. I don't like the third act. When I liked all the like kind of more Rush Hour, the more like Bruce Lee martial arts stuff
Yeah.
in the beginning, and then once they kind of, I thought the villain was probably one of the better villains, and I liked how they did apologize for Iron Man 3 because Iron Man 3 is probably the worst Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoyed Sam Liu, and I even enjoyed Aquafina and the other characters. I was confused by the second end credit scene of the movie, just because I'm like, what? Okay, seems kind of with the sister.
Oh yeah, I was confused by that too. I read it as she just took over, but it's just her aesthetic, not like she's evil now.
Yeah,
She
that's
just
like,
took over the
is she
compound.
evil now? It's
I don't.
like,
Yeah, I could see where that could be interpreted that way, and maybe it is that. But I was like, oh, maybe it's actually just she just occupies that because her other place got messed up. So
yeah,
I took it as her taking over.
yeah, could be. It could be that. Could
yeah.
be that. We'll see in the future.
My number 5 was Pig. I watched this
Mm.
recently, and I did think because of the posters and everything that was going to be like John Wick, and oh boy, it wasn't.
Yeah,
But
it's not.
I found it. Um, I love how it's really just a simple story about a guy trying to find his pig, and um, I kind of related to it because I think if you know people in a certain thing, you can understand that the world we kind of see in the movie, and it just felt it's just a very simple movie, but I think I should just really enjoy it, and it isn't like this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think people had the wrong idea going into it, but I really do enjoy it.
it's an earnest film and how we choose to deal with grief or not deal with it and let it fester.
And the guy who played is basically Nick Cage's sidekick. I also thought really did a good job.
Oh yeah, what's his name? I know you're talking about. But
Alex
yeah,
Wolff.
he
The
did very
Naked
well
Brothers
too.
band
Alex
guy.
Wolff, thank you.
That's his name. He was also in the Naked Brothers band. It was a show in the 2000s. Anyway, number 4 is Dune. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed this movie. I think I really enjoyed it because I came from I got the Ace Rock Spark notes because I listened to the Discord. And I'm like, oh, you know what? And so everything I just but yeah, and I've been reading Dune, and I really enjoyed the adaptation. I enjoyed you know the characters and how I think it was a really good adaptation of that story, which is difficult to do. I agree there are some problems. I think that the real major problem is just we don't really understand about the Harkonnens, about what their motivation is, except that they're evil. But I think
Yeah.
it is setting up for a really good deconstruction of a hero story, and I think it's
Mm.
going to take people off guard because even in it, it's like it's not it really just feels kind of like it does feel like a part one, and I'm kind of excited to see where it goes and see these characters again
Mhm.
and see new characters
Mhm.
and see them adapt the rest of the book. My number 2 and 3, I was really hard to decide this. This was like really close. My number 3 was the Suicide Squad. I think James Gunn somehow like everyone said, salvaged it. He made Polka Dot Man cool, and I mean, he made us care about a character named Ratcatcher 2,
Yeah.
and like um and yeah, I think the reason both these movies are so close is because they are like the source material. Unlike the first Suicide Squad, this one feels like about D-list, B-list, C-list villains going on a like Black Ops mission. My number 2 was no Spider-Man No Way Home. Without going into spoilers, I just think again this is also just really to the Spider-Man comics, and really
Mm.
uh, we get to see Spider-Man, and you get to see the evolution of Tom Holland and Zendaya and Jacob Babylon and just see them act and sort of see, and it feels rewarding as someone who's really enjoyed the other two films, even though I think this one is a good it really does a good job of like you had the tee off of Far From Home with Spider-Man's identity being revealed, and this one kind of I think gets the ace in the hole of that conclusion and the conclusion of this character story. And yeah, and then my number one, like yours, Chris, was Mitchell's versus the Machines. Again, just a really good movie. Really, just really empathetic, really good animation. It just it's 10 out of 10 on everything. It's just good on every level. So, but yeah, the movie I really wanted to talk about was my number 7. It was Eternals. I I felt like no one really talked about this, and I saw a lot of people didn't like it, but I really enjoyed it. I actually found it had the opposite problem of Shang-Chi, where that movie, the longer it goes, the fight scenes get worse in Shang-Chi, and I found Eternals as the longer it goes, the fight scenes actually get pretty better. Um, it is a little bit of a weird movie, and I think you haven't seen it, right, Chris?
That's the big Marvel thing I have not seen this year.
Okay, it's coming to Disney Plus, I think the 12th of January, so it's I would check it out. I mean, I think everyone does a pretty good performance. I think again, it's hard to. I don't want to spoil this because I do want you to see you and hear your reaction. There's one moment I did of cringe in this movie of like basically the plot is they're gods. They've been around since BC, and we got to see them. The villain is really bad. Whatever. It's which Skarsgård is it?
Bill.
There's a lot of them.
It's Bill.
It's Bill Skarsgård. It is Bill.
He's the villain. I didn't know Bill Skarsgård was.
You forget if he's in this movie.
He
I'm
has
not gonna lie.
maybe 6 lines total.
Jeez.
Right.
What a waste.
Very much so.
But I like the idea of them trying to kind of blend the cosmic stuff with the sort of mythology.
Sure.
I think the speedster in this is really cool. I'm trying to remember what her name is. She's mute kind of, and so she sort of like Toph. So she uses like vibrations to like tell if you're telling the truth or not.
Okay.
I really like Kumail Nanjiani. He basically has a Gallic gun powers. He literally does finger guns as his powers.
That's funny. I like that.
But he's like a big Bollywood star, and you even got a nice like Bollywood dance scene. Yeah, but I think everyone does a really good performance, and I think just the powers are really interesting and cool, and some of the questions that they're bringing up, and I will say it has probably the best end credit scenes of any of the stuff this year, better than because Spider-Man's was
Awful.
whatever.
It was the worst.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But this one actually, this one actually probably had better because it's, and I'm interested to see where these characters go. Like I mean, I want to see maybe like Nebula fight Angelina Jolie's character from this movie. I want to see Thor team up with Kumail Nanjiani. And also I should say I probably think the best in this movie, even though he's not in it too much, was Brian Tyree Henry. That's a hard name to say. He's just very cool, and he's just very down to earth, and I very much enjoyed him. Also, they do some stuff. I'm like, wow, they did this in this movie. There's some like, wow, they references this in this movie. And I'm excited to kind of see because they do set up some pretty interesting stuff for the MCU, and I'm kind of excited to see where it goes from there. Also, I really enjoy what's his name, the weird looking guy, kind of looks like Barry
Keegan.
I don't know what it says. Barry Keegan, who has the very weird face. He kind of looks like Diet Ezra Miller.
I know you're talking about. Yeah, he was also in Green Knight this year.
Oh, but yeah, I think it's a better movie. I liked how it had some. It did have LGBTQ stuff. It did have some pretty stuff. I'm like, I don't think we've ever had this in a Marvel movie before. And I enjoyed it. It did raise up a lot of questions about other movies, and I hope the stuff is answered. And I thought it was it wasn't the same. I think a lot of people always like, oh, it's the same movie. This one is not the same movie. So
it's Marvel's Prometheus.
God, that I actually, yeah.
I know you didn't like it, Vanny. I'm sorry. I liked
Oh
it.
no, it was like one of my worst movies of the year. I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. Where I think there are elements that do work well in it. Like to your point, Kamal Nanjiani absolutely was a scene stealer. His assistant, I thought was fantastic too. Karun. I think there's a lot of good elements, and I do appreciate some of the steps they are taking with the film. I just think if I was to disagree with any one of your major points, though, is the acting. I thought everybody, with the exception of Brian Tyree Henry, Kamal, and the guy who played Karun, everybody looks so unbelievably bored or confused with what they're doing. Like the first line of dialogue in that film, I was like, I need to go get my money back. Like I just thought like nobody's like, I thought the big feeling I got throughout most of that film was like nobody knew what was going on or what kind of messaging they're trying to throw out there.
It feels like, yeah, I get that. I just felt like there is a lot of messaging in this movie, and it's not exactly clear what the right answer is. That's how I got, you know.
Yeah, I just think Cersei in the film, just like if she's meant to be like our character avatar to walk us through this world, she was just so bored.
Yeah.
And super confused for it too. And like even as much as I did like Kamal Nanjiani's character in this too, I ended like, again, not his fault for, but just the story direction they went with it was just, these are just bad decisions everyone's making. Like this is just like very confusing. Like it's not even confusing. It was just boring.
What they have him do before the final battle starts makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I was very confused by that. I would agree. Like that was a part where I do agree the movie has problems, and but I still think you could like something with problems. And you know.
Sure.
Yeah. Like no, I understand this. It's kind of like when Double Toasted gave their review for it too, and Corey was very complimentary of the film. But he also does acknowledge, like, yeah, this is not going to be a film that everyone's going to like. You're going to kind of fall in. But I don't think there's going to be anybody who's going to fall in between with this. Either you're going to be somebody who walks away going like, yeah, it's flawed, but overall I had a really good time with it, or you're going to kind of be more my camp of just like, no, this is like hands down Marvel's worst film. I'd rather watch Thor: The Dark World like on repeat than see Eternals one more time.
I don't know if I'd go there. Like I'm with you, Vanny. I didn't care for this. As a matter of fact, the more days pass since I saw it, the like slightly worse it gets to me. But I will say it's not the worst Marvel movie. I think Thor 2 is still worse. Like there's just so much wrong with that movie. It's not even funny. I think Iron Man 2 might be worse. I can't say for sure, but yeah, I'm glad, Austin, that you liked it. I'm glad that you got as much as you did out of it. It just didn't work for me, and I wanted it to. I feel like I was one of the few people like within our circle who wanted to give it a chance based off the trailers, but actually watching it was just like, eh.
The way it was shot was pretty great. I like just the look of the film. I was blown away just because I'm so used to the way like Marvel normally shoots their films, and they look great. Don't get me wrong, but it's always the same. They always look the same to me. And this one, it's like the director switched it up, and I was like, man, like this is pretty great. Like it almost reminded me. It did remind me kind of Dune, and I was like, wow, this is like
very art house.
Yeah.
No, there's parts that work. There definitely are parts and elements of it that do work. Like I think for me, the Eternals is a 30,000 feet film. Like from a distance, a lot of it really does work. It's when you start really kind of seeing like the more the nitty gritty. I think that's where I think you start to divide up into the two camps. Is either like yes, stellar cast, absolutely amazing cast. Overall, I think the performances, with a couple exceptions, were very, very weak. Or visually, yeah, very stunning, but a lot of it also feels kind of meaningless too. Or it does raise some good questions about what the future of the MCU films are going to be. But also at the same time, a lot of it is so existential too that I could either see if they don't go full force with it. I think they may have set the Eternals where if it didn't get the kind of acclaim or praise that they were hoping for, that they could very easily just disregard all of it or wait a few years and then come back to it with maybe a new cast or director and try it again.
It's one of those films that is clearly very divisive. I love hearing the back and forth. I just can't add anything because I just haven't seen it.
Yeah. I would give it a watch though when it comes to.
I will.
It's a Disney Plus film. Yeah.
That's how I'm gonna watch it.
It's 100% Disney Plus. Yeah. Like we're like, as I think I do think like Black Widow was also another one of those where like, yeah, this totally should not be a full theatrical release. That I think the film definitely is probably one of the more generic MCU films to come out in recent years, and it took Hawkeye to fix it. I could see that like Eternals having something like that. Like they could do like a branch off or a sequel or a spin-off series maybe, and that will kind of address some of the issues for it. But not to go back to DT too much, but I do agree with Corey's sentiment where this should have 150% been a TV show. If it was a TV show where they had time to breathe, this could have been amazing. And everybody who in that cast, as good as they are, none of them are really star power level actors. Even Angelina Jolie has fallen so far from being like the Hollywood actress. Yeah, she could probably do an HBO Max series and do just fine. And I think she would have been much better off doing something like that, where she comes in for like 2 or 3 episodes and then she fucks off for the rest of the season if she was too big for something like this.
I agree with you, but I think Marvel's good at course correcting, so I think they can do a good job with an attorney. Because I mean, like, we got things like for Ragnarok. We've
they've addressed their stumbles before.
Oh yeah.
So, and I want to see what the impact this movie does have on the MCU, because I think it's an interesting one.
It is.
Yeah, it's very, very different. Oh, I'm sorry, Deadpool, you want to say something?
I'll give it one thing, because I kind of thought it was kind of bland. I enjoyed it. I think it's like mid-tier Marvel at best. Like there was really nothing I could really cling on to too much. I thought the characters were really interesting. I wish they did more of them. Except they took a lot of times they took a backseat to the main plot, which I was like I kind of got bored with. But I'll give it one thing: it was different. Which a lot of the Marvel movies sometimes feel cookie cutter, but this at least they were trying something else.
I will say I like they referenced the thing in D&D, so that might have just been me. That might be a dumb thing that I enjoyed, but yeah, I would give it. I would check it out. Try it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, you like.
Okay. No, I'll check it out when I have the opportunity to do so. I know what you said, it's coming out next week on Disney Plus. So who knows? Maybe I'll do a spoiler review for that movie. I'll do that on my scene by scene breakdowns.
It might be on the
list.
Moving on.
That probably is. No, it definitely is. So yeah, then it just makes sense then to do it then. I'm obligated to watch no matter what one day. So, and I will check it out. I want to see where I'm going to fall on which side, because it is a very divisive movie from this year. But no, thank you for bringing it up, Osnick. Moving on from Osnick, Ace Rock, your favorite films of 2021 and your favorite movie of 2020.
Okay, so I had like a list of films, and I kind of just as we went through them and talked about them, just for the sake of repetition, just kind of crossed out a couple and left ones that either haven't been mentioned. One of them is The Harder They Fall, which I really it's one of those films where you watch it, and because it's something that addresses an issue that never really gets talked about, in the fact that 1 out of 4 cowboys during the Wild West era or period of American history were black or people of color, or even indigenous people. Something that just blew my mind, and then it forever changed the way I look at all Westerns. I think I ended up watching what's the Tombstone, which like I absolutely used to love that film. Then watching it, I was like, oh wow, it's so the absence is just so stark. And I think Regina King is just like totally amazing in that film. Another one that I really liked, and it's not going to be on anyone's list anywhere, but it's just biased because it's a Korean. My bias because it's a Korean film. Is this movie that was on Netflix called Space Sweepers, which is like this just like space opera sci-fi film. I
saw a trailer for this. Not to interrupt you. I saw a trailer for this movie.
It's a lot of fun. It is really dumb and a lot of fun. And it's just fun for me to see Korean cinema or it's just something that I'm not used to seeing Korean actors put in this kind of a setting and used as like the protagonists or heroes of like a big sweeping sci-fi epic. Nobody, I think has been mentioned a couple times. I absolutely adored this film. I just had so much fun watching it. And it was just really knowing what Bob Odenkirk put into it is impressive. I don't think this got mentioned, but and I think it's objectively not a great film, but it really hit hard for me is Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Mm.
Just because Egon Spengler, I forgot how big, like in terms of like characters that I grew up loving, Egon was like someone who I always absolutely loved as a kid. And another thing, Grace McKenna, the girl who plays I guess kind of the main character, she's coded as being a person with autism in a way that I thought was really earnest and really handled in a really tasteful way, and was also very empowering for her. And being the parent of an autistic child, that I just really love that aspect of that character.
Mm-hmm.
Judas and the Black Messiah, I thought just like up and down, side to side, is a fantastic film. And just like I has some of the best performances I've seen in a film in the last couple of years. And another film, I don't think this one got mentioned on anyone's list, but it's Evangelion: Thrice Upon a Time. It's the last Evangelion film of the Evangelion Rebuild series that oh Jesus, I just blanked on the creator's name, and he's like one of the most influential anime like directors and animators ever. But Evangelion is something that I grew up with, and it's something that the director has been trying to remake and redo like multiple times, and it's just really, it's something that it's something that it's like one of those generational films. I mean, it's like it's up there with like Cowboy Bebop. You know, it's up there with like Akira. It's really just, you know, and it's cool because it has these like shonen anime like manga moments that are just like it's just um you know that are incredible, but it also really heavily fucks with the like issues regarding mental health and depression, and it's something that the and I'm trying to find the director's name. Hideaki Anno. Hideaki Anno like notoriously dealt with depression while making these films, and dealing with really toxic fandom, and the way he wraps things up in Thrice Upon a Time is like really, it was really, I loved it because I felt like I could tell that Ano was finally like at peace with this thing that he's been wrestling with for a long time, and I'm just like, I'm happy to see the characters have a happy ending, which they never did up until Thrice Upon a Time, and it just kind of said to me that like Hideaki Anno is finally getting a happy ending too. And then of course my film of the year is obviously Dune. I think it's just like artisan level craftsmanship in terms of filmmaking. I think it's visually one of the most like breathtaking films I've ever seen. Sound mixing and soundtrack wise, again, it's also just it's visually arresting. I think if there's it's at its runtime of over 2.5 hours, I still felt like there were things like things that were taken out of the book that just I guess I can understand why they were taken out of the book, that I just wish were in it, but at the same time I think it's the definitive adaptation of a novel that everyone said couldn't be done. I also think it's a really good criticism of the stereotypical hero narrative, and a lot of like heroic narrative tropes, but also it's a really good commentary on imperialism and colonialism as well. So I think all those things really come through, and just the I can't wait for the next film. So yeah, that's me.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on Dune? I know it was on a number of people's best of lists this year. I like the movie, although I took some issues with it, but I know a lot of people were very excited for this, and this is, but yes, it is far superior to the 1984 film in every single way. But did anyone else have any thoughts on Dune?
I just wanted to say I forgot to say this earlier, but one of my favorite scenes was when they were in the desert and he was looking at the palm trees and it's like, why do we have these palm trees? And he learns that they take up so much water. And it's like, well, it's tradition. And I think that really kind of breaks down to what the theme of the book is, where it's the idea is like, no, that's stupid. Why the heck do we have these trees here? We can use this water for so many better things, but we're using it to like do the kind of same old, same old. I think it really kind of it does actually, like kind of what Ace Rock said, break down the problems of the chosen one story, and really does a good. I mean, I don't really think Paul is a chosen one because he doesn't really do any chosen one things. He's actually kind of more of a jerk than anything, and a bit selfish to be. And
Yeah, there's a couple. One of the things I like about films like Dune, and I think like a lot of the A24 films fall in the similar thing, is that they really like, if you're not paying attention to some of the subtleties of it, you're gonna miss on some of the major thematic issues of it. And there's a scene where there's a couple of scenes where Paul references this thing called the Missionara Protectiva, where the Bene Gesserit have basically implanted this chosen one like prophecy among the people of Arrakis. And there's a part where Paul is willingly and knowingly using it to deceive people that he is looking at and using as a resource. And as much as people talk about how Duke Leto, who I think is fantastically played by Oscar Isaac, people forget that in the beginning, like, he talks about we're going to use and cultivate the people of Arrakis, not for their own benefit, but because they're like, he's going to use them to ostensibly defeat the Harkonnens and maybe even the Emperor. So it's like it's there, but it's also it's there, but you got to look for it.
Very nice. Very well put. Deadpool, yourself, good sir. Your favorite movies of 2021 and your favorite movie of 2021.
All right, I have 6 of them. Originally, I had 5. Then you reminded me of one that came out. So this year and last year, everything just seems to run together. All right, so my number 6 is Godzilla versus Kong. It's a fun popcorn flick. I mean, I think it gets a little too over the top sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. It's what the first 2 Godzilla movies should have been, but they, for whatever reason, they had to go to they just one character dies the first 15 minutes of the first one, and then literally the second one opens up with "Our son's dead." About these movies about giant monsters smashing cities and each other. Like they take it too seriously. Fortunately, Skull Island, knows to have fun with it, and they're able to kind of replicate that a little bit more with Godzilla versus Kong. So I had a blast, especially watching it with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my number 5 is Judas and the Black Messiah. Like it's a really interesting story, and there's some really good performance. David Kula, like he does an excellent job, and it's to the point where I'm almost at the point of like standing up in my seat and just chanting on with him, like I am a revolutionary. Like he has that great of a performance. Like it's definitely worth watching just for him alone. And then my number 4 is your guys' favorites, Mitchell's versus the Machines. Like we've pretty much gone over most of it. It's just a really fun movie. Number 3 is the Suicide Squad. Just probably one of the best movies in the recent like DC Cinematic Universe so far.
Agreed.
A lot of fun. Hopefully they'll be able to do more with it, but who knows. Then number 1 and 2 for a while was kind of neck and neck. Number 2 is Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right.
The reason why it's not my number 1 is there's a lot of lazy writing. There's a lot of which I mean we've already talked about. Like there's a lot of plot points that don't make sense when you think about it. There's a lot of hand waving. It's magic. To explain stuff. And it's just like, I mean, they were so eager to cram the other movies into it that they didn't really stop to really think about like how can we make this work. It felt like making the plot make sense and consistent was secondary to trying to like say, hey, look all the stuff we have. Which I think you guys mentioned before that you're kind of afraid of Marvel going that direction. I think Corey mentioned it on DT, which I'm a little hesitant of because of this, but hopefully, because definitely plot took a backseat to a lot of the showcasing of various things
and the emotional moments too.
Yeah.
So no, I agree with you. It's a fair criticism. It is.
But it was a blast to watch. Like it's arguably the best Spider-Man movie. And it's definitely one of the better Marvel movies. Not the best. I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it holds up to like the first Avengers movie or like Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's definitely not the top tier, but it's close. And then my number 1, which I literally watched a couple hours ago in preparation for this this podcast, because I wanted to give it a shot before we see if I would like it or not. Is The Harder They Fall.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Like it has a powerhouse cast, you know, like you have Lakeith Stanfield, you have Jonathan Majors, Delroy Lindo, Idris Elba, Regina King. Like it has a really good cast, which pretty much everybody gives great performances. There's not a bad performance in this movie. Plus, I'm a sucker for a good Western. And it definitely was a good Western. Like it knew when to use Western sort of tropes, but at the same time, it wasn't afraid to do something different. And it's beautifully shot. The set designs are fantastic, especially with how colorful the movie is. Like, there's a couple fight scenes where like it's just like the screen's just popping with color. So it's a really interesting contrast to what typical Westerns typically the color palette is. And on top of that, I think probably what really sealed it for me was how it ended, which I won't spoil, but I was thinking they were probably going to go one direction, and then they do a twist that I didn't really expect, caught me completely off guard. I'm like, that's actually a really good ending, and it makes complete sense. And it has some really good performances in that twist ending, and it kind of really sealed the deal for me.
Nice. Well, I know you and some other people also had this on their best of list. So to hear you say it's your favorite movie of the year, it's one of those. I have not seen it yet. I want to. It's on my list of films to see from 2021 before I do my big Twitch best of the year. So to hear you sing its praises, it's like, okay, this is one I have to put at the top of my list right now. So that's awesome. Did anyone else have any additional thoughts on The Harder They Fall?
It has an amazing soundtrack. There's some original music in that absolutely fucking slaps. There's another thing too that I love about it. All of the main characters are based off of real people.
That's cool.
Like they make the story itself is fictionalized, but the characters themselves are based on people who are like documented to have existed. Like Delroy Lindo plays this guy Bass Reeves, who was a real. There's like books written on him about being a U.S. Marshal, and I think Jonathan Majors is actually a descendant of his.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
Someone in the cast like talked about how like they like found out that they were descended from Bass Reeves, but yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention when I talked about was how much I love the soundtrack to it.
Yeah, and the great thing about the soundtrack, it works. It's not like some movies which are period piece where they kind of force in modern music, but like all the songs work and make sense on the context of the scene. So which just adds even more to why the soundtrack's so good.
Mm-hmm. I really oh
no, go ahead, Azir.
I was gonna say that I'm happy to see the Harder They Fall and the Judas and the Black Messiah on people's lists. I didn't finish Judas and the Black Messiah, but I really liked it, and I'm with Deadpool. Like, I just wanted to chant with Daniel Kaluuya's character as well, because I was like, he's very charismatic, and you just want to root for him. And with the Harder They Fall, I just finished that today, and I also really liked it. But one of my favorite scenes is when they have to go to a white town, and not only is it it has like white people there, it's also extremely white. Like everything, like the buildings they have are white, and they even say like the name of the town, and they say a white town. Whereas on contrast, when you look at the I think it's called Redwood, or I forget the other place where the black people live, but theirs is more colorful and things like that.
I laughed out loud when they take you to White Town. Like that was hilarious. There's actually a cameo in that scene by a famous MMA fighter, Donald Cerrone. The guy that Jonathan Major stares down in the bank. I'm like, is that fucking Donald Cerrone? Who's like legitimately a bad-ass fighter. He's like it's really funny to catch him in that film.
Was he the mayor? Or not the mayor, but the bank owner, I think.
No, he's like one of the. I think he must be like one of the security guards in the bank.
Oh, okay. I see it.
Very nice. It's again, just like I said before, this is the movie I clearly have to see before. January's at an end. Because I feel like I need to not improve upon my list, because I have confidence in all the films that I have picked, but no, I want to diversify and definitely check out a lot of the things that you guys had. So and thank you everyone today for talking about your favorite films and your favorite film of 2021. So again, just want to go to the line. Thank you, Deadpool, Ace Rock, Austin, Chris Ayers, Jacob, Kaz, Faye, Xavier, Newsy Ducky, Luke the Boss. Again, pleasure to have you join us for the first time. Really do appreciate that. And Vanny. Vanispheres. Thank you, guys. This was an excellent show. It was a long one. Actually, not as long as I thought it would be, but it was a good one. It was a good length. So thank you for that. I just want to let people know. So throughout the month of January, we're going to be doing kind of our best of, or even worst stuff. I think we could potentially do. I'll keep like the same poll up that we've had on the Patreon. So, but again, as always, feel free to suggest anything else, and all the listeners too who have been listening to this on Patreon, feel free to suggest anything else as well. But I just want to say thank you, guys, and bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yay, we did it.